my friend. My name is PEtrovick, and for the past 25 years, I've been teaching, coaching, and training people how to create a better quality of life, primarily through the home-based business profession. I've created a lifestyle today that most people would only really dream about. But I have to tell you, it hasn't always been easy. What I've learned is that our philosophies and our programming have a significant impact us. And what I've also learned is that we all, from time to time, need to get advice from people. I put this series together. I call it Prosperity and the Mentors. My question for you is, why is it that some people in your company have massive success and maybe you don't, or have a better quality of life and you don't, whether it's, the money thing or the relationships? Well, there are certain clues that so many people have laid down for us. And what my intention here with this series, Prosperity and Mentor, is to kind of take you behind the curtain and reveal what life is like for people who have really, really created prosperity, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, my guest today has been a full-time network marketing professional, leader, trainer for over 42 years. He's an icon in the industry. He wrote a book that changed my life, and I read it back in 2000, called Mach 2, with your hair on fire. It's the art of vision and self-motivation. And he wrote another one called The 4-Year Career. It literally has impacted tens of thousands of people all over the world. Highly recommend you get those. He's been featured on the cover of Success magazine. He's got a no BS style. He's a straight shooter. He's funny. He's the real deal. And when you hear where this guy came from, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, if he can do it, anybody can do it. He and his wife, Kimmy, were recently featured on the cover of Networking Times magazine. My guest today is the one and only Mr. Richard Brooke. Richard, thanks so much for being here today, man.
Hey, thank you, Terry. It's an honor to be here. It's been a long time.
It absolutely has. Well, if you could share a before and after story for yourself in a network marketing profession and maybe inspire some people, what would that story be, Richard?
Well, I just built this new website, and I put a timeline in it in the About section. And I started the timeline at my home that I owned and lived in before I got in network marketing. And that home is, I'm at a ranch I own in California. That home's about an hour from here. And I bought that home because it was the closest home right outside of where I worked. And I worked at Foster Farms, which was, still is, the largest single poultry processing plant in the world, basically a chicken factory. So I bought this house right outside the front gate, and I come to California to, visit family and come to my ranch, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 times a year. And hundreds of times, Terry, I drove by the chicken plant, but I'm always in a hurry going somewhere, so I never pulled in to say, well, let me see my old house. So about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I finally pulled in, went to the house, almost thought I was in the wrong neighborhood because I didn't hardly recognize the house, but I took a picture of it. It's on my website. So if you want to see the real before, you go to my website and look at the About section, you'll see this home. And I mean, it was perfect for the story because the home was abandoned and dilapidated, and there's all kinds of, bushes growing out the windows and stuff. And that's where I started. And I worked for this company, Foster Farms, and I worked in the chicken plant, and I actually loved it. And I had my whole career mapped out to be there for the next 40 years. And then, something happened, which, things happen. There's a lesson in all these stories. And, so one of the lessons is when people tell you no, well, that's just based on how they see the world and you and what they think you said and right in this very moment, but things change. So, my sponsor prospected me. In fact, my sponsor, Steve Spalding, You remember Steve?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, he prospected me, I don't know, 4 or 5 times, and that's a whole other story. But I just totally blew him off. No, no, no. And then Foster Farms just arbitrarily, without talking to me, changed their policy. And they came out with this company-wide policy that said you can't advance any further in this company than I already was, and I was like low level, but I was management. I was off the line finally and teaching other people how to cut chickens up. And they came out with this policy that says you can't advance any further in this company without a 4-year college degree. Well, I cheated on my civics final the last day of high school to get a 1.9 GPA and get the heck out of there. I didn't have any college at all, and I was not going to college. So all of a sudden, Steve's scribbles on the yellow pad, 5 who get 5 who get 5, I had no idea what he was talking about. All of a sudden, I was interested. Before that policy came out, I wasn't the least bit interested. And people say, well, how could that be? Because, he was talking about getting rich and traveling the world, and you're working in a chicken plant. And I said, it didn't matter. I didn't care about getting rich. That just wasn't on my radar. That wasn't part of my self-esteem. What I cared about was being one of the senior and respected people at the chicken plant. That was my vision. So, 42 years later, so that's kind of the bottom of the timeline on my website. My next door neighbor is Larry Ellison. And he's like, I don't know, maybe the 4th or 5th richest person or the 3rd richest person in the United States. He's worth $60 billion. On a bad stock market day, he loses $10 billion. And he's my neighbor because Kimmy and I live on the island of Lanai, which is the smallest and the oldest Hawaiian island. There's only 3,000 people that live on the island, and Larry Ellison owns it. And the only thing he doesn't own is our homes. There's about maybe 500 of us that have homes there. And our ocean view, Terry, is 200 degrees. We watch the sun rise off the water and set on the water. And we hear the waves crashing on the rocks 24/7. And that's the contrast. If you look at the two pictures, the home in Livingston, California with bushes growing out of the windows, and you look at Lanai, there's the before and after.
There you go. That's an incredible story. You're definitely an inspiration. So if you could define what prosperity means to you, Richard, what would you define it as?
Well, first and foremost, health. And, I think people know that, but they don't always keep that front of mind. I have good friends that are, worth hundreds of millions of dollars that have, died of cancer, and you can't buy health.
Right.
Once you let it go to that sort of that cascading point, the tipping point, doesn't matter how much money you have, you can't buy it back. So health for sure, vitality. Second for me is quality of relationships. Kimmy and I just have a beautiful relationship, and she gets most of the credit for that. But, what difference does it make if you have, $100 million if you have a bad marriage or you don't have friends? Or, it's ridiculous, right?
Yep.
And, I don't know, maybe wealth is third or fourth, probably third for me when you say prosperity is, do you have something that you're doing that you love doing, that you have a vision for, you have goals for, that you love being in the process every day, whether or not you're, knocking it out of the park, do you love doing the daily work? Does that give you enough juice? And, you know, abundance is somewhere in there in prosperity. I certainly like living in Lanai better than Livingston. So that's undeniable. And I like flying first class better than coach. And I know Larry Ellison likes flying his Bombardier Global Express better than he likes first class. So there you go.
All right. Do you have any rituals in the morning or in the evening that you find yourself doing because that's now who you are and the rhythm that you're in?
Yeah, Kimmy makes fun of me because I have, you know, I don't have the ritual that you read about in, you know, the best book on habits. So my ritual first thing in the morning is I get up, I make a beeline for the coffee pot. And as soon as I get my coffee, I pull out my computer and I catch up on my email, which is, you won't find that in any books on spiritual development. You know, what I suppose I'm supposed to be doing is sitting out on a rock and meditating for 30 minutes and then doing yoga. But you know what, I do what works for me. And what works for me is for me to get present to the day and the people that I'm going to be engaged with for the day. For me to get present, I have to clear the decks of the things that it's just a personal standard and integrity with me. You know, if you send me an email and you ask me a question, for me, you know, it just doesn't work for me to reply tomorrow. I want to reply quickly. And so, you know, this is a global business. So when you wake up in the morning, you got messages from people all over the world, and some of them have been waiting 4, 5, 6 hours, maybe 12 hours, and some of them are urgent. And so anyway, that's just for me. What do? I clear the decks. I get all caught up with all my emails, which could take an hour and a half, 2 hours. But then once I'm caught up, now I'm present. And one of the first things Kimmy and I usually do is we go for like a 90-minute hike. And so, you know, I suppose that's a ritual. And, you know, the only other ritual that I do that, that is habitual that I think a lot of people just are like thinking about doing or getting to the place of doing is I visualize all the time, you know, including when I wake up, which might be, you know, I might wake up at 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I usually get up about 5:30, but, you know, even if it's 3 o'clock, I usually don't get up, but I'll just lay there. And what I do is visualize. And, you know, what do? I just visualize everything. I visualize. So if I have you know, I had this interview with you this morning. So I visualize, how's that going to go? How do I want it to go? You know, what kind of questions, how am I going to answer? You know, I don't know the answers to all that, so I don't script it all out. But what I visualize is I just put myself in a movie of, okay, I'm going to do this interview with Terry, and it's going to be awesome, and it's going to be fun, and I don't know what I'm going to say, and I don't know what he's going to ask me, but it's going to be great. So I just visualize that. And, you know, yesterday I created this long sales proposal for a company, and so I visualized the president and CEO reading it, and I visualized his response and visualized him making decisions about how to execute it, and I visualize everything.
Well, it sounds like you're very intentional about creating your outcome, not only the outcome for you, but the outcome on how people are going to experience you and how you can create that success, which, Yeah, I can absolutely see that ties into, what you've written in Mach 2 many, many years ago. Different question. Do you find that you have a book, Richard, or a gift that you find yourself giving away to people at all?
I've given thousands and thousands of books and audios away in my career. Lots of different ones.
What's one that sticks out that you just love and say you got to read this?
I could obviously have given away a lot of the common books that probably everybody already has, but what I like to find is the books that people probably don't have. And then also a book that they can read in an hour, because my experience is if you can't read it in an hour, you're not going to read it. And I mean, some people will, but most people won't.
Right.
So one that sticks out for me is a book called U Squared by Dr. Price Pritchard.
Mm-hmm.
You can read it in, 30 minutes to an hour. Probably costs $5. You just Google it. You can find it. He's actually written quite a few little books, but he's one of my favorite people. He's brilliant. He's creative. He's different. And what he does is he's just a great storyteller and creating analogies to have you get a point and never forget it.
Mm.
And so I won't tell you the point of U Squared, or the people maybe won't buy it, but it is a point that when you read a book, you'll never forget it. And you'll find that you pull it often as a resource for how you move in certain situations.
Mm.
And the possibility that this book gives you is, how do you move when the story you have is that you're stuck? Okay, I'm stuck. How do I move? And people say they're stuck, and then they start saying I can't, and then they start saying no one will, and then it's a slippery slope from that point. And so U Squared is just I've given away thousands of them.
Yeah. Well, it kind of brings me to my next question really is, I know that you are at a place that most people strive to be, but going behind the curtain, perhaps, Richard, has there been a time recently when you struggled personally with your thinking, whether it be prosperity thinking, abundant thinking, or being able to accomplish something? Or are you just solid?
Well, that's domain specific. So I would say there's two areas I still struggle in my life. Struggle meaning, here's what I would call struggle. It's just that I choose not to do it.
Mm.
It's simple as that. It's not that I don't know how to do it. It's not that I don't want to do it. It's just that I actually, in the moment that there is to make a decision, I want to do something else more. And those two areas would be fitness and quality of relationship. So in fitness, I'm super healthy. I don't take any pharmaceuticals. I'm 63 years old. I got all my numbers are fantastic. Except I tend to carry around an extra 30 pounds just in case I need it. But I have, I've made progress in the last 10 years. I've lost 35 pounds and kept it off.
Awesome.
But I have another 30 to go. And so, what's the struggle? What's not really a struggle? I wouldn't call it a struggle. I'd call it a choice. I choose to eat things that are not going to contribute to my weight loss. And I choose to do things other than work out. And it's just purely a choice. If losing that 30 pounds was that important to me, well, I'd make different choices, right? I'd hire a full-time coach to follow me around and They grab that out of it. Wait a minute. This is fat food. And, but I don't hire that coach. You say, oh, well, that'd be crazy. You can't spend that kind of money to hire a full-time fitness coach. I mean, are you kidding? The things we spend money on, that's probably the best investment I could ever make, right? And then the other area is I treasure my relationship with Kimmy, my wife, more than anything in the world, and I still say stupid things that undermine it. And why? It's because I don't know what to say. It's because I don't know her love language. I don't know no, it has nothing to do with that. In the moment, I make petty, selfish, narcissistic decisions that don't honor our relationship. When it comes to being on fire about business, success, life in general, relationships, my relationship with Kimmy, even my health, I'm not ever in a funk. I'm not ever depressed. I don't ever worry.
How do you control that? How do you manage that? Or how did you get to that place?
You just turn the art of vision and self-motivation into a habit. So
say more about that.
This isn't rocket science, okay? If you look around the world, okay, I'm looking at your world right now, Terry. You got this fancy microphone, you got some kind of a stair stepper, and those are good for hanging clothes on. I don't know what you do. You got all those books. If we pulled back and we looked at your home, we'd see all these things that you or somebody before you had built onto the dirt where you live outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. And if we pulled back even further, we'd see all the things that the North Carolina people built on the dirt of what is North Carolina. If we pulled back further, we'd see what human beings built in the United States. And if we pulled back further, we'd see the earth and everything that human beings built on the earth. And if you compare what we have created in the last however many, 2,000 or 2 million years, I don't know, and compare it to any other species in the history of the world, what you would find is the most any other species in the history of the world has created is a nest. And that's it. Every other species in the history of the world, how they are designed is to survive and procreate. And so they eat and they maybe protect their territory, which has to do with eating and procreating, and they build a nest and they procreate, and they do the cycle all over again, and that's the extent of their life. Human beings were given the gift of creative thought, choice thought. I live here with the deer and the birds and the coyotes and the bobcats, and, these animals do not have the gift of creative thought. They just instinctively do what they have been programmed to do, and they don't do anything else. It's kind of like everybody else has a closed source, what do you call it? Like closed source platform. That's probably not even the right word. And human beings have an open source code so that we can program ourselves. We can change what we think. And so it's as simple as somebody comes to me and says, oh, I'm in a funk. I don't think this will work, blah, 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 whatever. So they're speaking words that they choose to speak. And then here's the cascade of the words that we choose to speak. We speak the words. Then what our body does is take the words and convert those words to pictures and memories. And those are stored within our body. Like, we may think, well, how could those actually be inside our body? Because we're more than just water and cells. We are this, Jeff Bezos has just proven that the human body as a creation device is worth $1 trillion. Not $1 billion, $1 trillion. So we have this, you know, we're chemistry, we are like water, we're spirit, and these memories are held inside of us. And when we say words like, oh, you know, I don't think this is going to work, I can't, well, that changes our body chemistry, and we shrink as a result of that. And then in a shrunken, weak state, we can't do anything. We don't attract people. We don't do the actions that we need to do. And so it's a simple process. So if you came to me and said, you know, I can't, nobody will, blah, 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 you know, I would just ask you a few questions, and the questions would have you speak answers that spoke different words, different pictures, different memories, different associations. Your body chemistry would change. You know, wasn't it, I don't know if it was North or South Carolina, but the person that just won the lottery, you know, they won $1 billion. They're somewhere in North or South Carolina. So, you know, I could ask you, you know, what if that was you? You know, what if the lottery company notified you and said, you know, you just won $10 million. How would your life be different? Just by asking you that question, I changed your body chemistry. So, I mean, you know, we could talk about this for days, and sometimes I do.
Yeah, let me ask you this question. So let's say, because a lot of, I think, our viewers are going to be people who are entrepreneurial based, and let's say they've been working at it, they've been trying, they've been, you know, doing the deal, but they feel like they're stuck financially, just not having that breakthrough. Maybe they start thinking they're too old, they're not smart enough, they can't really change their future. Is there 3 suggestions, 3 tips, 3 questions that you might be able to offer them that could help them create a new vision for themselves?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're not like standardized questions, but if you came to me, Terry, and you said, you know, I think I'm too old, and I think I'm too tired, and I don't have any money, and I've been trying to do it and it hasn't worked. So, you know, people are looking for definitive answers, and the answer is not definitive. The answer is process based. So you come to me and you say, I think I'm too old. And what do you expect me to respond with? Here's a scientific study that proves that you're not too old. You think that's going to make a difference, even if there was a scientific study?
Yeah.
So, you know, what people are expecting is not actually the answer. The answer, if you come to me and say, I think I'm too old, actually is in the form of a question, which might be, well, Terry, what if you weren't too old? What if you didn't believe that you were too old?
Mm-hmm.
What if, and just by asking the question, what I allow you to do, Terry, is change your vision.
Mm.
Because when you come to me and you say, I think I'm too old, I don't think I haven't any money, I've been trying it and it hasn't worked, what you're speaking to me is your vision. And the difference between you and a pig is you can change what you say. You can just make it up. And in fact, when you say, Terry, you know, I think I'm too old, you just made that up. You know, I'm trying to think of some stories, but, you know, well, Colonel Sanders, what was he, like 75 years old when he even got the idea? And I'm thinking about a particular isogenics distributor who like makes like $2 million a year, and he didn't even start until he was like 78 or 80 or something. And so, you know, if you're looking for evidence, we can find the evidence to disprove your theory, but that's not how you change the conversation. How you change the conversation is understand that you just decided to make up that you're too old. Even if you try to tell me the story, well, I've been doing it for 5 years and it hasn't worked. And so then I would ask you, so what? Are you deciding it won't work because it hasn't worked for 5 years? Yeah. Well, you just made that up. What if you're 3 feet from gold? You know, that graphic and the The miner's digging in the tunnel and he gives up, but he was that far from finding the gold, right? You just made it up. And so what I just stay grounded and teaching people that the gift of being human is that we have the gift of making anything up. And most of what you and I say that disempowers us, if not all of it, we just make it up. And of course, we like the drama of it. We actually like the body chemistry of being depressed and sad. And, you know, just look at what people do with social media. They take any opportunity to share their dramatic bad news and they plaster it all over social media. So people will go, oh, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, that's horrible. Right? So people are addicted to feeling depressed. And if you want to change your outcome and you want to move from Livingston to Lanai, you cannot afford to make up crap because it's not going to produce what you're looking for. You got to change everything. And you have to understand that everything is made up. Everything is fabricated. Everything is imagination. Everything is created. And so, you know, the only thing that's true is you've done it for 5 years and it hasn't worked. Okay, that's true. That's history. That's a fact. That's great. But that has actually nothing to do with that it's not going to work. You just made up that it's not going to work. Okay, it's a fact you're 78 years old. No change. I'm not disputing that at all. But for you to say you're too old, you just made that up. And when you make up that I've been doing it for 5 years, so it's not going to work because it hasn't worked, and I'm 78, so I'm too old, you just made up a vision that has you moved to Livingston. So what I tell people is this is how it works. This is how the mind works. You can choose to ignore it. You can look for some other definitive answer that's going to magically change everything, or you can do the work. And the reason I'm in the habit, Terry, of being on fire about anything I choose to do is I have habitually done the work. And so now I'm in the habit. And even if there's something that I'm challenged by, like this summer I went and lived in Australia for 3 months and I learned how to surf. And I know I'm in the Guinness, I got to get in the Guinness World Book of Records as the oldest, whitest, fat guy to ever learn how to surf. And it would have been easy for me to make up as I'm out there floundering around and falling off the surfboard and gasping for air and looking like a complete fool. It would have been easy for me to make up, I can't do this, this isn't worth it. But I didn't make that up because I'm in the habit of just knowing that we make everything up. And so I made up, you know what, this is like anything else. The first 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 attempts are not going to be pretty. And then I'm going to have a breakthrough, just like learning to ride a bike, just like learning to, you know, talk to people about your opportunity. You know, the first 20, 30, 40 times you do it, you're bad. But if you debrief after every conversation, if you listen to what you said and listen to what they said and pay attention to their body language and your body language, and you ask yourself, well, could my timing have been different? Could my emphasis have been different? Could I have asked more questions? Like hone, you know, Stephen Covey said, sharpen the axe, sharpen the axe, sharpen the axe, so that the next conversation you have, maybe you're a tiny bit better. And the next conversation, you're a tiny bit better and a tiny bit better. And then you get that cumulative impact, compounding impact of getting better. And at some point you get to the tipping point. And, you know, I gave myself 3 months, 12 weeks to learn how to surf. And I think at week 8, actually week 3, I got up and rode a wave to the beach, but I had to have my coach pick the wave, time the wave, and push me onto the wave, you know, training wheels.
Yeah.
At week 8, I went out on my very own in the midst of all the pro surfers. I picked my own wave. I got my own timing. I found the right spot on the wave. I paddled like crazy. I caught the wave and I rode it to the beach. Boom. Surfer. End of story. So that's how you do it, is you recognize that it's all a story, and you can choose to make up and believe and be in the habit of immersing yourself in a story that keeps you stuck. Or you can make up a story like everybody in the history of mankind has made up. They got something in their mind about, I want to create this, I want to build this. And there'd been no proof that it could be done anywhere in the history of mankind. If you look at what mankind has done for the last 2,000 years, is somebody got the idea of a wheel, but nobody'd ever done a wheel before. There's no evidence. There's no track record. So the whole, paradigm global conversation is, well, there's no such thing as a wheel. You can't do a wheel. You can, right? But somebody got the idea of a wheel, and somebody decided, I'm going to do it anyway. And whether it's a wheel or a skyscraper or an airplane or an electric car or a unmanned driving car or a computer chip or everything else that we've created, somebody decided they were going to do it in the face of no evidence and in the face of a ton of negative conversation. And if you want to have a breakthrough and create something in your own life, you have to be a pioneer. You have to make it up like Walt Disney made it up. You have to create it in your imagination and then develop the habit of believing it, and then have the patience and the faith to let it manifest.
So I know a lot of people get on this path of personal growth, personal development, prosperity. They do the visualization, the meditation, and they're going through the mechanics of it, but they're just not having success. It sounds like what you're saying is that they just really need to stick with that vision, be okay with their journey that may not be, you catch the first, second, or third wave, but stick with that vision as they build their network marketing company, build the quality of life, the relationships, the physical body, the money, whatever, and it will happen if they stick with it.
Yeah, well, here's some secret sauce, Terry. So what most people do is their definition of vision and what they're going for is all end game. They want the top rank in their company. They want a certain level of income. They want a new car. They want a beautiful home. And if you look at their vision board, you can see it because it's all end game stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the secret sauce of vision is not the end game. The secret sauce is to ask yourself, who do I need to be? And what do I need to do every day so that will automatically just lead to the progressive realization of what it is I want. So, you and I know a lot of network marketers, and they're always thinking about the top rank and the big house and blah, 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 blah. And what they really need is a vision about them as a connector, about them as an inviter, about them as a conversationalist, about them as a listener, about a vision about their state of being when they're in front of a candidate. Is their state of being one of desperation and, they're a hunter, like, I'm going to get you? Or is their state of being one of peace and prosperity and contribution? And, they plant seeds and they water the seeds. They're a farmer. So what is their state of being? So what I teach people that want to build big empires in network marketing is how to create a vision about being a prolific networker, which is a daily habit, a daily set of actions, a daily state of being. And then just trust that if you do it every day, like I teach this 90-day thing where, basically what you do is invite. And my definition of invite is I ask you to look at my opportunity and you give me a response. So I'm just not throwing stuff into the universe. We actually have a conversation, even if it's online. Hey, Terry, I got this thing I'm doing. Will you take a look at it? Yes, no, or maybe. If I get a response, that's an invite. So the 90-day program is do one invite a day for 90 days. Now that doesn't sound like much, but you and I know somebody could do that in 15 minutes a day. You know, less if the first person they connect with responds to them. And, you know, people that you reach out to today will respond next week. So you get to check the box sometimes, and you haven't even talked to anybody today because they responded a week later. But if you would actually invite one person a day for 90 days, like you have a stat tracker, 90 days, you check the box for 90 days in a row. Here's what I can tell you, full-time, 42 years of network marketing, you will have invited more than 0.1% of everybody in the history of your company. Like nobody's invited 90 people in 90 days in the history of your company. Well, about 1 out of 5 or 10,000 have. And if you keep it up for maybe a year, I can pretty much predict year 5 income, 10 to 100 grand a month. So what the secret is, you know, have the vision of the 10 to 100 grand a month, but the most important vision is that you do something every day that builds for that, and you do it in a way that works. Mm. You know, like my vision of surfing, yes, I had the vision of, I'm a surfer, I can go surfing anytime I want. I had that vision. But the more important vision that I had was, like the most important vision I had was, I'm going to go get in the water at least 3 days a week. I'm going to go get in the water. If you don't go get in the water, never going to learn how to surf, right? I just started with the vision of, okay, I'm going to have a conversation that I want to go get in the water. Like, you know, and I love to work more than I love to surf. So, you know, I had to like set work aside. I had to get the surfboard, put it on the car. It's a 10-foot board. It's like an aircraft carrier to carry me. I got to go down to the beach. I got to haul the board all the way. I got to put my wetsuit on. I got to look like an idiot in front of everybody out there that knows how to surf. And so that was actually my number one vision is I'm just getting in the water. I'm 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 getting in the water. And trusting that the rest will take care of itself. And it did.
That's awesome. That was gold right there, my friend. All right. Well, let's wrap up with a couple of fun questions for you. If you had the ability, Richard, to program everybody's cell phone with one message that would show up tomorrow morning, what would that message be?
Do it anyway. With a big emphasis on the word anyway.
Love it.
I think Nike stopped short of creating the breakthrough that people need with the slogan, just do it. I mean, I get their intent, but I add the word anyway, because I know the self-talk that people have is when you say just do it, what comes from that is, well, yeah, but I'm tired. I don't have time. I'm busy. No one will listen to me, right? Whatever your story is. And if you interview the people in all walks of life that have created a transformation for themselves, a breakthrough, you know, they recognized all those same excuses and obstacles. They just did it anyway. Just do it anyway.
Love it. Love it. Do you have an unusual habit or thing that you love?
Well, I was just talking to Kimmy this morning. She would answer that question. So we have this beautiful home, and we live in this private island in Hawaii, and blah blah blah. And at least a couple of months a year, I come to my ranch, which is the antithesis of Lanai. So it is in a little town called Raymond, California, which hasn't changed much in the last 150 years. I still go into the same general store that I went into when I was 6 years old. So it's like 55 years ago. It's the same one that Teddy Roosevelt went into when he first came to Yosemite National Park. And there's no gas in the town. The groceries in the general store, it's the worst possible food on the planet to eat. There's no culture here. There's no Starbucks. There's my internet here at the ranch is DSL. It's 10 down and 2 up. And a couple of months a year, I come here and I work. I'm working from the ranch doing this interview, and I got another one as soon as we're done. But as soon as my second one is done, I'm going to go out and I'm going to fix this fence. And, I'm going to cut down this tree. And this is therapy for me to do something with my hands, do things that I'm not good at. So the other thing about Raymond and the ranch is you can't like call people and say, hey, come and fix this. It's too far away from everybody. I know you live out in the middle of nowhere. It's really hard to get competent people to come and do what needs to be done. So, I got this light switch that goes out. And so I tear into the, light switch on the wall. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm watching YouTube videos about how to rewire a light switch. I'm running back and forth, turning off the breakers, and, I'll probably like electrocute myself. And, I had a GFI outside that wasn't working, and I should have videotaped. In the last 2 weeks, Terry, I've taken the GFI apart 4 times. I've replaced the GFI, but I had the old one and the new one on the ground next to each other, and I might have swapped them out, and I might have put the old one back in. I probably spent 3 hours on this GFI, and it still doesn't work. And so I do all these things that I know nothing about doing, and I usually don't get most of them done, and I end up calling somebody to come and do it. But this is my therapy. I'm a rancher. And, I grew up on a ranch. I grew up on a big farm. And if I had to do it over again, if I could figure out how to buy thousands of acres in my 20s, instead of being a network marketer and a coach and an author, I'd have been a farmer and a rancher. That's my genetics. And so a couple of months a year, I come back. I have this ranch, like 500 acres. There's nothing on it but trees and rocks. And I play rancher and try to fix things I have no idea how to fix.
I love it. I love it. I can relate totally. Yeah. Well, Richard, I so appreciate you spending some time with us today. You're an amazing leader and influencer, but I just love who you are, man. I really appreciate who you are, and thanks so much for sharing your wisdom today. So if somebody wants to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
It's pretty easy. Richard Brooke with an E, BROOKE.com. You can see the old house in Livingston on that website. You can find the books, The 4-Year Career and Mach 2, and, training programs and events, and lots of, dozens and dozens and dozens of free videos and articles and quizzes and cartoons and things to help people have the breakthroughs they want.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being you and sharing all your wisdom. And for my friend watching this, hope you got some value out of this interview today. I know you did. Definitely take to heart what Richard said. And when you do, I have no doubt that your life will begin to change. But like he said, visualize the action steps, not necessarily always the end game. Remember this, my friend, you have a choice. Make it a better than terrific day and a prosperous one, because you absolutely deserve it. Until next time, bye-bye for now.